And which does make this other piece of news interesting to me. So this is from a newsletter that I subscribe to called Wired AI Lab. Big fan of it, by
Mhm.
the way, if you'd like to subscribe. Um, and in it, it's talking about a new kind of large language model being developed by researchers at an organization called the Allen Institute for AI. And this model, which they're calling it FlexOlmo, where that comes from, um, is interesting in that it is using an approach where I don't exactly know how to describe this, but it's like they're able to carve out data sets. So they're having the data itself into these components that can then be disconnected somehow, so that in effect the ability, if so, at least the way I'm reading this, the concept here is if a piece of the model training data was to be found to be in violation of a copyright, and therefore, say, a judge ordered it to be removed from the model. Right now, the model providers have absolutely no way of doing that. Literally, you'd have to just try to extricate it and rebuild the model from scratch. It's a disaster. And supposedly, with this approach, they could actually do that. That you could unplug that data without having to retrain the entire model. And I find it absolutely fascinating that that's possible. So I'm always fascinated to sort of see how this is evolving, and again, whether or not this takes off. But did you look into this? I mean, what was your take on this?
Yeah, I really love this idea of having data lineage and have data lineage based contributions to a model that can be taken in or out, because right now it's a one-way path. Once the data goes into the model, the model has that forever, and there's no way to even tell how where the data came from, because the data has already been transformed and tokenized with no additional metadata or lineage to be able to figure out how the parameters were created or trained in the first place. So that's a great step forward. But so I think this is good going forward for open source models. But obviously every model built to this point is not going to use this approach or be able to backwards engineer their and retrofit the standards to their models. So I wonder how much value it will actually have. I think it's great. I wish this had happened before the AI model epiphany and Cambrian explosion happened, but it is what it is.
Well, and I do think one of the challenges is that the entire structure is based on the voluntary model, which is obviously the core contention that all of these publishers, for instance, have, is that there was no voluntary, involvement, that they just were
Mm-hmm.
scraped. And so this entire it's a really ingenious model, really, because it's basically it allows the publishers to effectively create their own data set. Their data is never actually handed over. They train their own model, and the models are merged in some way. And then you can effectively disengage those model components. It's a fascinating approach. And I think beyond the privacy, I actually see it as a very interesting model, from like an enterprise perspective of is
Mm-hmm.
building models using this, because one of the things that I do think is interesting, if we're trying to use an LLM type approach beyond just words, right? Beyond just so that it makes complete sentences, but we're actually training it on institutional knowledge, as an example. One of the issues that we have within the enterprise is that institutional knowledge evolves and changes over time. So,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, I may, have a division that I shut down, or I have a part of the company that I sell, and I may want to be able to remove one set of that knowledge because I don't want it answering questions about a company we no longer own anymore, or a division we
Mm-hmm.
no longer own, sake of argument, or
Right.
my product set changes. And right. So this idea of being able to pull out knowledge from the brain and replace it with other knowledge, I think is really intriguing beyond the sort of privacy and copyright issues, which is what these guys are trying to address. I think it's a really interesting idea to allow a model to evolve over time. So I would not be surprised to see this concept get legs. But
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. The challenge is that the genie's out of the bottle for all the big commercial models, and I don't see them going down this road at all
Mm-hmm.
anytime in the near future. So,
But it could make it
um,
much easier to augment existing models and to basically
completely.
create the custom models when you don't want to build it from scratch. Totally agree with you there. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely very interesting. I think from an open source perspective, you're absolutely right. I think it has a lot of potential impact. So
Mhm.